Your loved one who is passionate about the environment, here is a perfect holiday gift. Our sponsor, Established Titles, is a project that lets you ceremonially purchase as little as 1 square foot of dedicated land in Edelston, Scotland, so that you can call yourself a lord or a lady, like the historic Scottish tradition. Some people even change their plane tickets or credit cards to include lord or lady. Your title pack comes with an official certificate. You can see exactly where your plot of land is located. It makes a perfect last-minute gift. But most importantly, Established Titles plants 1 free tree for every plot of land sold. Established Titles does really good work all over the world with reforestation organizations like One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future. So you'll have a great laugh whether you're Scottish or not. I'm not. But you're giving the gift of reforestation to fight climate change. If you use my link, you'll get 10% off, and your plot of land will be right next to mine. You can see it on a map. Go to establishedtitles.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman for an extra 10% off on top of their Black Friday deal. The link is in the podcast notes. It's great to have back on the program today Michael Cohen, former personal attorney to Donald Trump, also host of the Mea Culpa podcast and author of the forthcoming book, Revenge, How Donald Trump Weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice Against His Critics. It's out on October 11th, and you can pre-order it already on Amazon. Michael, great having you on. I appreciate it.
Good to see you, David.
So, I mean, I don't really...
By the way, just to let you know, you can actually pre-order a signed copy, a limited edition signed copy, if you go to revenge-thebook.com.
Revenge-thebook.com for signed copies. Beautiful. There are at least 4 investigations right now into the former president. You've got the New York finance investigation, the Mar-a-Lago document scandal, you've got January 6th, and then you have the Georgia election results. Given your knowledge of Donald Trump, is he genuinely rattled by this stuff, or does he think he's just sort of, invulnerable?
Well, unfortunately, I can't give you the answer to that one because Donald is a narcissistic sociopath. So how he expresses himself as it relates to any one specific issue, it's very hard to get into his head. From his body language, I can tell you that this Mar-a-Lago raid really got to him. But so did the Tish James lawsuit that is now confronting him, because that attacks his ego. It attacks what basically he's lived for his whole life, which is to be able to impress upon others how rich he is. And this 220-page indictment, it negates all of that by simply showing that he's really nothing more than just a petty con man.
You explained during your testimony under oath years ago, I don't even remember now exactly when it was, it's all kind of been a blur, but you explained this strategy of claiming that an asset is worth more if you want to use it as collateral for a loan, but claiming that the very same asset is worth less if you're trying to reduce your property taxes that you owe. How explicit was that strategy when you were Trump's personal attorney? Was it openly discussed?
So, as I explained, and I think you're referring to the 2018 testimony before the House Oversight Committee with the late, great Elijah Cummings, God rest his soul. Every year, Alan Weisselberg and I would be called into Donald's office, at which point in time Donald would say, after looking through the personal financial statement of the year before, how much more money he believes that he is worth and how he wants the personal financial statement to reflect that. Now, one of the things was the reason why he was doing it. And the initial reason was for Forbes magazine. He is obsessed with being on that Forbes 400 list. But he didn't want to just be on the list. He, of course, wanted to be as high on the list as he possibly could. And so for example, in 2012, like he would say, I'm not worth, as in 2011, $4 billion. I'm actually worth 6.5. And then the year after, he would say, I'm worth 8. No, in fact, I'm worth 9. And then it would go on and on like this. And these are random numbers that Donald would just create in his head simply because he would say the real estate market is good this year, meaning that my assets are worth more. Well, again, one of the things that he testified to in the Tim O'Brien case was that appraisals to him don't really mean anything. It's all what he believes the value of the price to be. It's selective pricing, so to speak.
And so what's interesting about that is if he is just sort of deluded about what these properties are worth, it's less overtly criminal in a sense, right? Because he's not saying, I don't believe that this is the value. He's deluded into thinking that it is.
I don't think so. What happens is he may be deluded into the total net worth, but as we would sit there, for example, the famous case of his triplex apartment, I don't care how deluded you are in your mind, you know that your house, in this case, the triplex apartment, is not $33,000.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Thanksgiving is over, and lawmakers return to D.C. for what should be a very busy 3-week-long lame duck session to close out the 117th Congress. On the agenda, government funding expires on December 16th. What's still unsettled is whether they'll be able to pass a bipartisan full-year appropriations bill or just kick it down the road with another continuing resolution. The National Defense Authorization Act is also a must-pass, but with the Republicans taking over control of the House in January, many want to delay its passage so they could target policies ranging from vaccine mandates to diversity measures. Pelosi would like to pass it before handing over the gavel. We'll see. But that brings us to Kevin McCarthy's quest for the Speaker's gavel. The race for the Republican leader will come down to a vote on January 3rd. McCarthy will need the support of all but 3 or 4 members of his conference. But over the weekend, it seems like a 5th Republican signaled no support for McCarthy. Prepare for a fight. On the Senate side, they're expected to pass the Respect for Marriage Act this week after 12 Republican senators helped Democrats advance the bill, ensuring that same-sex and interracial marriages remain protected nationally. And also, under the time crunch, is the Bipartisan Electoral Count Act overhaul. Many on the Democratic side are trying to attach this bill to the appropriations or the NDAA. Lots of deal-making to get done. Following a devastating holiday weekend filled with even more gun violence, President Biden says his priority is to try to get rid of assault weapons. But Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut on the Sunday shows said that the Democrats don't have the 60 votes needed to advance an assault weapons ban. Murphy did express optimism that something might get done in the next Congress if Raphael Warnock retains the Senate seat in Georgia, but he said there needs to be a conversation in the Senate about funding law enforcement in counties that are refusing to enforce state and national gun laws. The nation is responding with general disgust over reports about the former guy hosting Kanye West and Nick Fuentes, the latter a Holocaust denier and white supremacist, for dinner at Mar-a-Lago last week. You might recall Kanye West was dropped from a number of his partnership deals after making anti-Semitic remarks last month. The Justice Department has labeled Fuentes as a white supremacist. He's known to be a racist and a Holocaust denier. But Donald Trump defended the dinner. He described Kanye West as, quote, a seriously troubled man who happens to be black. And then, of course, as he tends to do, he claimed he didn't know who Fuentes was prior to the dinner. Our dinner meeting was intended to be Kanye and me only, but he arrived with a guest whom I had never met and knew nothing about. Yeah, the same way he refused to disavow David Duke in 2016 and other white supremacists who supported his campaign by saying, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? No, not okay. Last week, we saw Dr. Anthony Fauci deliver what will likely be his final White House press briefing. And this weekend, he appeared on a few Sunday shows. Regarding COVID, he said that the nation is in a much better situation than it was last year, but said that the coronavirus pandemic is, quote, certainly not over. Fauci noting that 300 to 400 people are still dying every day from COVID-19. Meanwhile, in China, protests have erupted across the country over the weekend against that government's zero COVID policy and the leaders enforcing it. Residents in China have lived through almost 3 years of very strict controls that include repeated COVID tests, surveillance of their movement and health status, and ongoing lockdowns. But China's not the only unusual place where protests have taken over. Let's look at Iran, where Iranian Major General Hossein Salami, the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, warned people to stop these protests, especially in one province in eastern Iran where the country's military has cracked down particularly hard. He said, "We will definitely turn this huge sedition scene into a burial ground for the policies of America, Israel, and its allies." At least 440 people have been killed in clashes with security forces since the protests began after Masha Amini died in police custody. And the protests in Iran have spilled over to the World Cup. Iran on Sunday protesting the U.S. soccer's social media post that showed an altered image of Iran's flag. What they cut out was the emblem of the Islamic Republic. So here's what happened. The U.S. soccer team told CNN on Sunday that it changed the official Iranian flag image for 24 hours, quote, in support for the women in Iran fighting for basic human rights. They said they always planned to put the original flag back up, but Iranian media called for the U.S. to be kicked out of the World Cup for, quote, posting a distorted image of the flag of the Islamic Republic of Iran on its official account, which Iranian media said violated the global soccer governing body's charter. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
Former President Donald Trump's newly launched bid for the White House facing criticism after he hosted a known white nationalist, Nick Fuentes, who was a guest of rapper Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago.
I don't think it's a good idea for a leader that's setting an example for the country or the party to meet with avowed racist or anti-Semite.
West's recent anti-Semitic remarks caused companies that he was affiliated with, including Adidas and Balenciaga, to drop him from their brands. Fuentes is a 24-year-old Holocaust denier who espouses racist rhetoric on his podcast.
Nick Fuentes is a racist, an anti-Semite, and someone who revels in just saying hateful, bigoted things against Jews and other minorities.
Fuentes was also on the grounds of the Capitol on January 6, prompting the House Select Committee investigating the Capitol attack to issue Fuentes a subpoena in January.
It's incredibly poor judgment, and I think that ever since the election in 2020, I think the president's descended deeper into heart of darkness here.
In a post on his Truth Social platform Friday, Trump denied knowing Fuentes, writing West unexpectedly showed up with 3 of his friends who I knew nothing about. The dinner was quick and uneventful.
So Trump is really impressed with Nick Fuentes. And Nick Fuentes, unlike so many of the lawyers and so many people that he was left with on his 2020 campaign, he's actually a loyalist.
A source told CNN that Trump found Fuentes, quote, very interesting. Particularly Fuentes' ability to rattle off statistics and his knowledge of Trump world. At one point during the dinner, Trump declared he liked Fuentes. According to that same source, the dinner grew tense at various times, including when West, who recently launched his own presidential bid, asked Trump to join his 2024 campaign ticket as his vice president. President Joe Biden, who is still weighing whether he will seek re-election in 2024, responded to the dinner from Nantucket over the weekend.
Mr. President! You don't want to hear what I think. That was probably the most often repeated comment at everybody's Thanksgiving table. You don't want to hear what I think. You don't want to hear what I... Hello, everybody. Are you sated? Are you satiated? Are you, thirsty? Are you okay now? Because, I hope you had dinner with loved ones. Donald Trump, of course, did too, but they were white supremacists, and one was black and one is Hispanic. How in the world could they be white supremacists, good ones, in good stead, in good standing? I don't know. But we now know more than Donald Trump does, and that is provable. That is a provable fact, because he doesn't know who Nick Fuentes is. And you guys in this audience do. We all know who Nick Fuentes is. Everybody that listens to this show or shows like it know who Nick Fuentes is. But the former president of the United States of America, who has top secret documents stashed at his country club / home, his resort, he doesn't vet his dinner guests. I even vet my dinner guests. I mean, I knew everybody at my Thanksgiving table. Did you know everybody at your Thanksgiving? Because he apparently did it. Now, I will tell you, my Thanksgiving was, it was full of contretemps. It wasn't great. Well, the dinner was. The dinner actually was. The prep was bad. Because Wednesday, it took Wednesday off to start the cooking. It's the pre-cook, right? It's the what can we make the day before day. And anything that you could make the day before, you make the day before, including the gravy, which gets the drippings on the day. And if you don't know that little trick, I'll give it to you. Just write me and I'll tell you how you do it. But anyway, so we started the day before, and, Jess is here. And so I had, a sous chef is basically what I had, which is great. And we're making things that we can make the day before. And I go, isn't it hot in here? It feels so hot in here. Why is it so hot in here? I'm through the menopausal, so it couldn't have been. So maybe it's the AC. Oh, yeah. And $9,310 later, I have new AC. But now I have an app. And I could tell you what temperature it is at my casa. I could tell you what temperature it is at the abode. Because for $9,000, you get an app. Oh, my God. It was just so anyway. So the next day, we're cooking. And, everybody's happy. Everybody's in a good mood, a little wine. Oh, let's all drink wine and eat cheeses and talk about politics and religion. What could go wrong? Listen, I don't want to talk politics. I don't want to talk. People who know me know that. They know that's true. But when you get to the point where you're showing me toddler pictures on your phone, I'm going to change the subject. I am. I'm going to downshift. I don't want to look at your phone photos, okay? I'm done. One picture is fine. One grandchild, one, new baby, one, fine. I'm good. I'm done. I'm fine with. But, oh, my God, the swiping now with the pic. And here he is, spitting up. And here he is with the alien poop. And look at this one. Look at this diaper. Is this the cutest diaper? Is this ever? Look, it has little animals on it. Oh, look, this one has. I'm like, no. And once we're through the pictures of the pets wearing hats, I am so out. I am so gone. I am not hanging with you. I'm done.
Stop. Slow down, Randi. Pet clothes, pets and hats, pets and outfits.
Clothes.
No. That's good. Always. That's always fresh. That's always good.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. I'm like, so, and then I put on some Christmas music. I thought, okay, well, I'll lighten it up a little bit. We'll just, get through. And I get criticized for the channel that I picked. Did you ever get criticized for the Christmas music channel that you picked? What is this, off-brand Christmas music? No, it's the log. What log? Don't you know the log? It's Florida. We don't have fireplaces. You have to put the log. You have to do the fake, fireplace log.
Let me tell you something. With 3 NFL games on Thanksgiving, if anybody puts a log on my TV, I'm flipping the whole table.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way.
As you should.
But there was a 1:30, there was a 4:30. Do you know, we didn't eat until 6 o'clock, okay? We didn't. We did it late. Usually it's 3. I get it. Everybody wants to be tryptophaned out, lay on the couch, and fall asleep during the Cowboys game. I know. But we decided that we were going to do it later because, we had Jimmy and Jeanette and they were babysitting a dog, okay? And they had to take the dog at 5 o'clock, and they live like 45 minutes away. So I said, all right, no problem. We'll hold dinner. We'll watch, a game, and, we'll hold dinner. We'll do dinner. So by the time we're done with dinner, I'm like, I'm into log territory now. And then I got criticized for having off-brand Christmas music. And I didn't, it was like, I'll Be Home for Christmas. That is one of my all-time favorites. By Anne Murray. They're like, Anne who? Get out of here. Anne Murray, the one with the honeyed, like a deep voice. I love her because I can hit those notes. So anyway, that was how ours went. And then Trump's apparently didn't include any dark meat except, it was all about white supremacy. And two people who aren't, the whitest of the white, Kanye or Ye. And Jessica said, do not call him Ye. I'm like, why does it, make me sound like an old person trying to be hip? She goes, no, it shows that you respect him and we don't respect him. Oh. See, I raised her right. I raised a good one. Although she kept wanting to put a Hanukkah ornament on the Christmas tree, and I kept telling her, you don't mix your meat with milk. Well, why can't we have diversity on the Christmas tree? Well, because then you're favoring the Christmas as being the primary with just a hint of Hanukkah diversity, and that's wrong. You see how woke it can get? So you see what I mean? This is why I didn't want to talk about any of it, because I have lines. I have, lines in the sand that shall not be crossed, But anyway, yeah. So then I heard, like that down at Magaloco, Kanye was like crashing, the back patio with his friend, white nationalist Nick Fuentes, who he's been running around with. And I don't know how many of you realize that Kanye has been running around with Nick Fuentes and other white nationalists, because I don't know what Kanye's thing is. Is he not okay? No, he's not okay. But has he gone full back crap? Maybe. He loves to hate now.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This election year has added a new season to our country's calendar, the silly season. Not silly as in fun, but as in asinine and pernicious. Forget any notion that America's elections should be about lofty ideals, important issues, and real ideas. Instead, right-wing screwballs have turned the GOP into the goofy old party, running campaigns based on frat boy stunts, horror movie scaremongering, and moronic games of hate your neighbor. For example, the GOP reached a new level of political degradation this year by literally gamifying its obsession with non-existent voter fraud. Party honchos have repeatedly been humiliated by failing to produce any proof of their wild claims that Democrats are running a massive illegal voting operation across America. So they've turned their snipe hunt into a national game, forming online posses of GOP voter fraud vigilantes who compete to find and out illegal voters. Post the name of an unqualified person supposedly scheming to cast a ballot, and you get 2 points. Name a group planning to bus illegal voters to the polls. Bingo! You get 50 points. There are also bonus points if you report someone trying to vote by using the name of their pet or a dead person. Isn't this fun? But the funnest part of this sport is that you score simply by posting names. No need for any evidence that it's a real person, much less an illegal voter. What's the prize? If you get enough points, you get to be called a master. Wow, this isn't just silly, it's pathetic. This is Jim Hightower saying, far worse though, given the screwball fantasies of today's right-wing extremists, some of the GOP's vigilantes say they'll personally go door to door to get proof of fraudulent voting. What could possibly go wrong with that?
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2 on this day in labor history, the year was 1953. That was the day 400 photo engravers at 6 New York City newspapers walked off the job. Members of the AFL's International Photo Engravers Union had just voted down arbitration. All but one local newspaper, the New York Herald Tribune, were idled as 20,000 newspaper workers refused to cross the engravers' picket lines. 6 days into the strike, that newspaper suspended operations as well. Writers at the New Yorker magazine remarked they were, quote, curled up with the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Worker, and a 2-day-old copy of Le Pren's. In the decades before digital images, photo engraving was a labor-intensive process. Highly skilled workers made metal plates from which newspaper images were printed. Photo engravers had been working without a contract since the end of October. They demanded a $15 a week raise. The Newspaper Association was only willing to grant $3.75. The other newspaper unions had been offered similar wage and benefit packages far below their demands. They knew that whatever they won or lost depended on the victory of the photo engravers strike. So they walked out in solidarity. Federal mediators intervened in an attempt to settle the strike. Hysteric newspaper editors across the country shrieked that the union had accomplished what the government would never dare do: subvert the freedom of the press. They sulked that the strike had broken 35 years of industrial harmony and peace, adding that the ungrateful workers didn't appreciate just how good they had it. After 11 days, members voted to end the walkout and let a fact-finding board solve the dispute. 3 months later, the board upheld the Newspaper Association's original offer of $3.75 a week plus benefits. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
In 3 statements issued on Friday, the former president, who recently announced his third bid for the White House, sought to defend himself, arguing that he had, quote, never met and knew nothing about Fuentes beforehand, and that the dinner was initially supposed to be just him and Kanye West, who also, as you know, has his own history of anti-Semitic remarks. While it remains unclear how much Trump knew about Fuentes and his pretty well-documented bigotry before their dinner, he hasn't denounced Fuentes' views in those statements. And if you're not familiar, Fuentes is this high-profile figure on the far right, a Holocaust denier, but he's best known for running the America First organization, which, according to the ADL, quote, seeks to forge a white nationalist alternative to the mainstream GOP.
We've got the white Christian men that built this country the first time, and we'll do it again.
Fuentes attended the deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017. He also recently called for the military to be sent into black neighborhoods.
Just send the military in. Do what must be done. Send the military into these black neighborhoods, make the streets safe. They'll complain about it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They're never going to vote for us.
Maybe we should send the police to, I don't know, Walmart, or maybe we should send the police to, clubs, dancing clubs, Pulse nightclub. He doesn't know him. He doesn't know. Never met him. I don't know him. I never met him. He didn't know David Duke either. He doesn't know. He barely knew Michael Cohen. He did some work for him. See, this is who this lying sack of garbage is. This is what Donald Trump represents. Is just you associate with whoever you want. You invite them to your resort / bedroom, whatever it is. That's where he lives, kind of, sorta. And then if anybody finds out that you're sitting there talking white supremacy with a guy named Fuentes and a black rapper. And that, you're engaging in anti-Semitic tropes, or you're, excusing it or whatever. No, you know what? You know why they went there? They went there to set him up. Don't you get it? This is what Kanye and Fuentes did. Kanye went to Mar-a-Lago to ask Donald Trump to be his vice president on Kanye's presidential ticket. I mean, they were literally trolling Donald Trump in his own home. In his own home. And Donald Trump was like, yeah, well, I'll listen to him. I'll give him some pointers on business. This is a man who is, I don't know, I don't want to say under investigation. He's literally about to be indicted for fraud. His CFO is on trial for facing 15 years for tax fraud in a case in New York. Donald Trump is, being investigated for tax fraud, for manipulating, the value of his company when it comes to insurance, and then valuing it differently for the purpose of taxation, right? I mean, and he's going to give Kanye business point. It's just really, and the true story is that Kanye went there to troll Donald Trump, to ask Donald Trump to be his vice president. And Donald Trump apparently had a complete and total meltdown. Now, it wasn't until he was insulted by, being asked to be the vice president that he actually tweeted anything bad about Kanye and said, he's just what, I don't know what he said, damaged, or there's something wrong with him, or he's very troubled. He's very troubled. I think he said, big league troubled or something like that. And he happens to be black. What? Yeah, this is literally what he did. This is literally what he did. And it's just like an amazing thing that he had no problem opening up his resort / home, whatever, to white supremacists who aren't even supreme or white. I don't understand it. I mean, it's just more backcrap stuff. It's like, it's so Trumpian. It's just so, and Kanye is a rapper. You don't really expect good behavior from a rapper guy, do you? And everybody expects that Kanye's gonna, have, like, I don't know, the wisdom of Solomon or something. He's like one of the three wise men now. He's a rapper, is what he is. He's an artiste.
I used to expect good behavior out of Will Smith. Of all the rappers, I thought Will Smith knew how to behave, but I guess that's kind of ruined.
And he what does he do? He slaps Chris Rock across the freaking head in the middle of an awards ceremony. You know what I mean? And nobody. These are not the people you look to for, political leadership or religious leadership or any leadership of any sort, any kind. Now, Fuentes, he's a 24-year-old snot-nosed, piece of dung. I mean, he's a pig. He's out there, saying some of the most outrageously hateful, hurtful stuff for money and profit. That's it. That's what his gig is. It's what he does. This is like, looking to Steve Bannon for guidance. This is like looking to Roger Stone for, guidance, for leadership. These are crooks. These are criminals. These are people that don't have any moral compass, any backbone at all. And the whole media is like shocked, I tell you. We're shocked that he hosted, white supremacists. Really? They're not even, I don't know. All I could say is when you have like Congress members like Chip Roy, saying gay pride and diversity is a bad thing and it's hurting our killing machine. Seriously, you can't have gay people in the military because it hurts the image of our killing machine. And when it's a sitting Congress member.
You've got the leadership, the brass of the Department of Defense, who are prioritizing Pride Month, putting out pictures with rainbow bullets, that they're, having the military stand down for a day to focus on the, whiteness and the wokeness and all of the danger that they say is appearing, which is actually rather minimal and small. And they're destroying the culture of our military.
The culture of our
military. And they actually hire positions at the top level of defense for diversity and equity, which is saying apologize for your whiteness and promoting your 1619 project. We need to end that. Yes. We need to refocus our military on what it's supposed to do, which is blow things up and kill people. And I introduced legislation to do that last year, and Senator Rubio has joined me this year in that effort.
I mean, when it comes from a sitting member of the House of Representatives, that's kind of offensive, okay? Because we do look to him to actually, produce some leadership in his role. Let's make the military what it used to be, a draft machine to churn out and eat up 19-year-old black kids. Let's do that. Let's make the military great again. which is what it was doing. Okay, when we had a draft, oh, believe me, when we had a draft, it was 19-year-old black kids with bullseyes on their back. And now all of a sudden he's upset because we have gay members of the military. You should be so thrilled that you have new cannon fodder. You should be so happy. If your view of the military is not peacekeeping at all, and it's not to, come to the rescue or aid of anybody, but it's just to blow things up and kill things and die for your country, then why aren't you glad that you have any cannon fodder at all? Why aren't you thrilled? No. You know what the problem is? We have a shortage of people wanting to join the military. That's what we have, a shortage. Why? Because we stiff them. That's why. We stiff them. And now we have this lame duck Congress, and they're going to have to do the Defense Act, the yearly Defense Act. And in there is going to be an increase in pay. And I bet you every Republican votes against it, just like every Republican votes against mental health access, right? And then whenever we have mass shootings, which, hey, what a festive Thanksgiving we had. Why? There was blood everywhere. They say, oh, it's not a gun thing. It's a mental health thing. But you voted no on mental health.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Whether you're listening to Leslie Marshall each Tuesday through Friday or Brad Bannon each Monday, you can hear them from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Tamara Lefkowitz is our guest international coordinator for the USW Healthcare Workers Council. Legislation, specifically the Workplace Violence Prevention for Healthcare and Social Service Workers Act, and what that would provide to, protect those healthcare workers, because nobody, especially healthcare workers who are, literally putting their lives on the line on a daily basis, should have to have their lives be put in jeopardy when they're simply going to the job.
This is an important bill because for far too long, healthcare workers have not really had a means to reconcile their violent workplaces. So if you go to work in a mine and, there are certain standards and expectations that are going to exist in that mine. The same if you work in a paper mill or if you work in a steel mill. When it comes to the health and safety of the caregivers and others and support personnel there, they are frequently exposed to dangerous situations, often understaffed. And frankly, because of the high turnover recently, which is another complication to the issue, it's often relatively younger, newer staff that are working alone as well. And so it's all sort of like an onion of complications, right? And so if you go to work in any of these other industrial settings and say there's a fire, well, there's a process for investigating that. There are expectations that will be set. There are standards to meet. And, there's an expectation that there's going to be a fire exit.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Happy holidays. By the way, this is the opening of the holiday season. Uh-oh. And as such, it's time to reintroduce everyone to Santa Buddha.
Yay! Oh, no. Not Santa Buddha again. Just when Glenn Kirshner has us all calmed down about this special counsel, you write a piece entitled Merrick Garland is Making a Mistake by Appointing a Special Counsel. I have to say, Charlie, first of all, I'm a Libra, but literally every legal expert I listen to, I'm like, that's a good point. No, wait, that's a good point. I kind of see both sides of this, but tell us your take.
Well, legally, I think it's probably a good idea. I mean, I take every point Glenn made from a legal standpoint.
Okay. Right.
I think from a political standpoint, it's a mistake. I think from a political standpoint, it's one more layer of insulation between those who are being investigated and the investigators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm perfectly willing to be proven wrong in that.
Yeah, Rude Pundits are the same thing. He said, I hope I'm proven wrong. I get what you mean. You said a special counsel means another layer of bureaucracy, which implies further delays and opportunities for mischief and deceit. The circumstances are simply not that extraordinary here. The guy is a private citizen suspected of a crime. That's all he is, no more or less. There's nothing magical about declaring yourself a candidate for president. You're not then blessed with the magic oil of immunity. That's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. If it were, Harvey Weinstein would have filed for the New Hampshire primary in 2016. But you just said, blah, blah, blah. You said he is the chief law enforcement official of the United States. Enforce the damn law and do it yourself, which goes to everybody's point, right, Charlie, that it's Merrick Garland's decision in the end anyway.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call
561-270-3844.
561-270-3844.
All right, everybody, you know what time it is. Yes, it's the season. 'Tis the season to be giving to Free Speech TV. Today is day one of our pre-Christmas winter pledge drive. Yes. And we're doing this so that we can ensure that the next generation still has a democracy. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be something? That is the gift that I would like to give, that keeps on giving for the new year. This is what I want to do. And this is one of the many reasons why I love to be working here at Free Speech TV, which is a not-for-profit independent media distributor of our show. And so when you realize that the next generation will have the most to lose if we lose democracy, and that they don't always show up to vote, but we need to instill in them the need and the desire to show up to vote, then you understand that this television thing is how you get young people involved in democracy. We need to include them and get them informed, and that is what we do here. We need to support them and get them active and propose things like student loan relief. We need to propose things like childcare. You know why? Everybody? People tend to have their children when they're young. People tend to have their money when they're old. See? So when we can advocate for things like childcare tax credits, when we can advocate for things like student loan debt relief, which has broken the backs of an entire generation of people who did nothing wrong except educate themselves, and we can actually get people to vote for that for them, then they say, maybe this democracy thing is worth showing up for. Anyway, if you believe that that is true, then you have to put your money where our mouths are on Free Speech TV. And you could do that today because our frontline funders have stepped up again, and they will match anything that you give today to the tune of $50,000. So if you gave 100, it would be 200. If you gave 200, it would be 400, so on and so forth. So give us a call at 877-378-8669, or feel free to donate online at freespeech.org. Freespeech.org. There's no TV in that URL. Freespeech.org. Or you can text FSTV to 44321, and we'll send you a secure link. So thank you very much for visiting freespeech.org now, or texting us at 44321 FSTV. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We totally appreciate your involvement and your money. Thank you. All right. So we were talking about the gun thing briefly just before we went to the break, because I was, on a tear. And part of the tangent was, about guns, right? And what's so fascinating is, when you talk about Ye or Kanye or Nick Fuentes, you can't really have the full breadth and depth of the conversation that is required when you name those people without talking about mental health. Okay, you just can't. Because these are people that, A, never learned from history, B, latch on to, hatred, or latch on to things that they think are going to provoke you, or things that they think will get your attention. And they have decided that the way to get your attention and your time is by making you fear things or hate things or despise things or feel like you're being erased. And that, of course, you want a Hispanic dude and a black rapper to tell you that. You see, and so you can't really have the full conversation unless you're willing to talk about mental health. Now, because there was so much gun violence in our country, the 3 days that we were off, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. Wednesday, Thursday is Thanksgiving. Friday we took off because, everybody gets that free day. It's just, part of the holiday now. And there was so much bloodshed. Oh, my God. And so the Sunday shows this week asked about the gun violence, especially to the Republicans who agreed to appear here, and said, well, what is your solution to this gun violence? What is it? I mean, are you willing to talk about assault weapons bans? Are you willing to talk about 60% of the counties in this here country refusing to enforce red flag laws, refusing to take guns away from those who have been reported as being a danger to themselves or to others? Are you willing to do something to enforce red flag laws in the 60+% counties that won't enforce them? And, they just wave it all away. No. Guns are not the problem. Laws are not the problem. No. It's mental health. Mental health is the problem. But, we had a mental health bill come up. Okay. I don't know what the date was exactly, but I think it was like in, I want to say September or October, we had a gun bill come up, right? And it only got one Republican vote, okay? And it was a mental health services bill. It was a bill to expand school mental health services to more schools, to fund it. It was the Mental Health Matters Act. It passed because back then, I mean, we do right now, but it's going to change. It's going to change next year. We had the majority in the House. We still have the majority in the House until, we change Congresses come January 1st, right? But it passed 220 to 205, which means 205 Republicans voted no on increasing the access to mental health care services for overburdened teachers who have to now be the lunch lady. They have to feed the kids now. They have to go and be Office Depot and go, supply shopping and supply the kids with pens and pencils and crayons or whatever. And now they also have to be mental health counselors. And they voted no. But of course, there's never an egg time around. It's only been just, a quick moment since that failed. Well, it passed, but it failed. The Republicans tried to make it fail, where they're pointing yet again at the issue being the shiny object of mental health.
On guns, I know what your personal position is here. Is there any gun law that you'd like to see stricter when it comes to the purchases of weapons?
I mean, we already have many gun laws on the books. If passing a bill would simply end gun violence, then I think you would have overwhelming support in Congress for that. That's like saying Congress could pass a bill to reduce inflation. That didn't reduce inflation. So, passing bills doesn't solve the problems. We have, as Governor Youngkin said, a mental health crisis in America, and I think there's overwhelming bipartisan support to fund better mental health programs and try to increase communication between law enforcement agencies and social services groups to try to better identify these troubled people before they commit crimes.
How would you suggest we go about preventing mentally unstable folks from purchasing guns if we don't have a waiting period or don't have certain classifications for certain weapons? Is there a way to do this?
Well, that's something that Congress is, I'm sure, going to discuss. It's been discussed the entire 6 years I've been in Congress. It's very difficult. The number one priority with respect to crime in America for Republicans is going to be the fentanyl crisis. We talk about terrible gun crimes in America, but we've had over 100,000 deaths.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Donald Trump is back. Angry, vengeful, ready to take back the White House and wreck America again. And who's going to stop it? These weaklings and losers? Business leaders? They'll
because of
bend the
fentanyl
knee
pouring
and
across
write
our
the
border.
checks. The press? Too many are just here for the show, ready to both sides America to death. The law? He'll ignore it, like he's always done. No, the only people who will stop Trump are Americans ready to put country over party, ready to put differences aside to save this country, ready to work, ready to fight, ready to stand up when he knocks America down. Because it's not about left and right. It's not about rich and poor, black or white. Like it's always been, the choice is simple. It's America or Trump.
Look, no person is above the law in this country. Nothing stops us.
Even a former president.
I don't know how to, maybe I'll say that again. No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
Finished with our meetings here at the White House this afternoon. We had a great planning session for our January 6th objection. We aren't going to let this election be stolen.
Above the law and reelected.
On January 6th, did you speak with him before, during, or after the Capitol was attacked?
I'd have to go.
Above the law and reelected.
President Trump he's a fighter. He, like so many of us, believe that this election was stolen, and he wants to fight through it. And we'll wait and see what happens on January 6th.
Above the law and reelected.
Certification of those ballots is covered up by the machine.
Above the law and reelected.
My conversations with the president are my conversations with the president.
Presumptive Speaker of the House.
A great woman named Ginny Thomas. She said that she still believes the 2020 election was stolen. She didn't wilt under pressure.
Above the law.
Investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government.
Above the law.
We will not go quietly into the night.
Above the law.
I waved to him, gave him the thumbs up, pumped my fist to him.
Above the law.
On January 6th, I was in charge of operations, plans, training, and strategy.
Above the law.
Today is the day American patriots start taking down names and kicking ass.
Above the law.
Is there any person here that actually thinks that Joe Biden won this election?
Above the law.
We're coming for you, and we're going to have a good time doing it.
Above the law.
I am Senior Advisor to President Donald J. Trump.
Above the law. Received $2 billion from the Saudis.
Jared Kushner secured a $2 billion investment from a fund led by the Saudi Crown Prince.
Now more than ever, America needs 4 more years of a warrior in the White House.
Above the law.
Every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies.
New Democratic hero.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
2024 presidential candidate.
No person is above the law in this country. I can't say it any more clearly than that.
Glad to have the MAGA-packed Supreme Court? Proud that they lied under oath to get the job? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you enjoy seeing our rights disappear one by one, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, I'm Laura Flanders of The Laura Flanders Show, where I interview the best thinkers and doers of our time. On TV, the show premieres Sundays at 11:30 Eastern on PBS World and at the Laura Flanders Show YouTube channel. You can join my guests and me every week there in the live viewing party, and then catch us all week on public television stations. Prefer to listen? Find us on a radio station near you or subscribe to the free podcast. You'll find listings and ways to subscribe at lauraflanders.org. That's also where you'll receive my regular commentaries. I call them the F word. Here's this week's. Win, lose, or draw. The allure of the white working-class voter never dulls for Big D Democrats. Whatever happens in election season, the party's conclusion is always the same.
Don't give up.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
You cannot just continue to blame society for evil people. At some point, you have to blame the criminal instead of just doing whatever you can to get the blame off of them and release them back into society quicker. Dan, I have been accused of just about every mass shooting there has been since the left has learned of my name, whether it's Uvalde or the King Super shooting in Boulder, Colorado, or the Buffalo, New York shooting, or even Paul Pelosi getting hammered. I have been blamed for all of them. And so all of this, it has to come to an end, this blame game. I think the left is pissed that I won my election.
Of course they are.
And so they're trying to find something to go after me about. I expressed my concern for the family, for the victims, and the way that they came after me is absolutely disgusting. We're all sick of this.
Uh-huh. So what's this year's Christmas card, Lauren? Is it going to be you and your, indoctrination of little children into the gun culture, or are you going to just put nukes in their hands this year? I mean, the mass shooting epidemic in this country, we've surpassed 600 mass shootings in this country over the Thanksgiving weekend. These are uniquely American things. Thanksgiving and 600 mass shootings per year. Uniquely American. No other country celebrates, Thanksgiving or, has 600 mass. You realize that it's more rare in America to have a day without a mass shooting than it is to have a day without a mass shooting. Do you know that? I mean, America has this unique gun mass shooting problem, and people like her and people like Nick Fuentes and people like Kanye and people like Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they worship the gun. They literally worship this piece of metal. They put it in their Christmas cards as if, ammunition is the reason for the season. And then, when we're done counting the dead, nearly 50 so far in the month of November, 50 dead in the month of November. So we count the dead, we honor their lives, and we say, oh, their lives were cut so short, it's just amazing, the possibility. And then it all fades from the headlines, and then it repeats on an endless loop. It happens again. The bloodbath begins again. And these legislators, she is a legislator, Chip Roy is a legislator, they literally refuse to do a damn thing about the weapon of choice for these mass murderers. They literally refuse, and they won't take any responsibility for their devotion to it. They won't take any responsibility for the indoctrination of their own children into this culture of killing, into this culture of weapons of war. I mean, I swear to God, you half expect her Christmas card to have like the HIMARS system on it with like a 6-year-old operating it at this point. And it's just so unbelievable. So we have 2 mass shootings a day in America. 2 mass shootings a day. What does that mean? That means 4 or more are killed in one gun episode, right? In one, And America is not numb to it. We're traumatized. We have become a culture of death. And they're all for it. They love death. They love it. They call themselves pro-life, but that they are all about death. They celebrate death. They cause it. Pregnant women can die now, and they don't give a damn. So this pro-life thing that they've been talking about, it has nothing to do with living, breathing women. It has absolutely nothing to do with living, breathing families. It has nothing to do with living, breathing elderly people. Because, with COVID and all, it was like, screw them. Everybody's over 65. We don't give a damn about their lives, right? We care about, guns. We care about the death penalty. We care about the fetus, not the women who carry the fetus. That's not your. They've even denied the fact that my body is mine. No, the fetus is supreme. I mean, everything is supreme with them. Everything, outranks living, breathing things. And then when you talk about mental illness, which obviously she suffers from, obviously Ye suffers from, obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene is bat crap, okay? Obviously Chip Roy is, just a devout liar who is dedicated to the proposition that, we will be armed with weapons of war forever from here on out, and let's just blame mental illness and fentanyl for mass murders. I don't understand it. But, and then when it comes up for a vote, meaning the bill for mental health access, vote no. We're not for providing access to mental health services. We're not for enforcing our laws. He says they all say these things. Well, we have enough laws on the books. Yes, but we don't enforce the half the laws on the books. We don't enforce the red flag laws in 60% of our counties. You literally have sheriffs who have decided that they are supreme, and you have a Supreme Court that decides that their opinion on guns is it. That is, and they won't. They don't like the restrictions on the concealed carry in New York City, a very densely populated city with subway, transportation below ground. No, they don't think that you should have to qualify to have a concealed carry permit. And so they just overturned the concealed carry permit application process in New York, right? They love guns. They're all about it. But whenever anything happens, it's mental health. Whenever anything happens, it's not my fault. Whenever anything happens, we have more laws on the book. Well, what about the red flag laws that we won't enforce? Well, sheriffs, they don't have to do anything. They don't have to enforce our laws. I mean, what? States' rights, county rights now. It's so bizarre. The passing of the blame, the passing of the buck, when truly it is easy access to guns. That is only a thing in America. And so mass shootings are only a thing in America. 2 mass shootings a day. And everybody that is pro-gun is down with that. It could, they're fine. Could happen to you, could happen to your kids, could happen in school, could happen in church, could happen at a Walmart, it could happen at the University of Virginia, it could happen at a gay nightclub, it could happen at a Walmart in Chesapeake. It just, and then they'll just say, he was a deeply disturbed 31-year-old man. He was a deeply disturbed 23-year-old man. He was but when it comes to, expanding access to mental health care services, no, we're a no. What? So we have this lame duck session, okay? And, the House passed an assault weapons ban. You know that. I think in July, the House passed the assault weapons ban. And it's sitting in the Senate doing absolutely nothing. We need 60 votes. I doubt there are 60 votes. We may have 51. We may, if, Warnock prevails, as he should. Then we'll have 51. And so maybe we have to, we couldn't even fold it into a tax bill because the parliamentarian, as you know, would say that's not germane. That doesn't fall under the reconciliation. So we would need 9 Republicans who say enough of this bloodbath, enough of being the most violent country on the planet, enough of, I think the only other country with more guns in the possession of the people is Somalia. And they're involved in a civil war, But I think it's the only other country, that even ranks with us. There are so many guns on the street, and the guy that shot up the Walmart, I think it was. I can't keep my mass shootings, straight. Excuse me, but it was the Walmart shooter. The one that left a note saying, "Dear God, forgive me for what I'm about to do." And said Satan, was telling him to do this and that he was humiliated and somebody hacked his phone and he took it personally that Satan had hacked his phone. I don't know. Obviously, should have been red flagged. If there was mental health care in this country, he would have been. But he was able to buy his gun the day that he committed his crime. So he goes, he brushes his teeth, he washes his face, gets the little sleep out of his eyes, brushes his hair, goes to the gun store, buys a gun, and then goes to the Walmart and shoots his own employees. And what did the right wing say? Deeply disturbed, mentally ill. Colorado Springs, 22-year-old. He had been arrested the year before for an alleged bomb threat against his own mom, against his own mother. And the one at University of Virginia, 22-year-old, multiple run-ins with the law, including a 2021 conviction for a concealed firearm carry without a license. No problem getting a gun, no problem at all. No other country allows this.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
911, what's your emergency?
America's healthcare system is broken and people are dying.
Welcome to Code WACK, where we shine a light on America's callous healthcare system, how it hurts us, and what we can do about it. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. This time on Code WACK. What do the results of the midterm elections mean for healthcare reform at the national level? Could they have an effect on the increasing corporatization of healthcare? To find out, we asked Michael Leidy, president of Healthy California Now.
I think the federal level is tough to gauge. I think we can say that the really big threats to Medicare and Social Security are off the table, because the Republicans don't have both houses. So their negotiating positions to leverage the Biden administration is weakened. They were definitely going to go after Medicare, maybe even raising the eligibility age. Can you imagine being subject to private insurance until you're age 70 instead of 65? That was being discussed by the Republicans. So I think there is going to be a need politically to address healthcare inflation. Now, what that usually means when you're not doing single payer is restricting access to the services, and so trying to make changes on the delivery side, or schemes like ACO REACH, or privatized things like Medicare Advantage. We know in California, Code WACK has covered it, that Medicare for All single payer can save people, individuals, working families, seniors even, $5,000 to $9,000 a year. We know that the state of California can save $158 billion a year by 2030.
A full Code WACK story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code WACK wherever you find your podcast. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
Now, the top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
For the first time ever since the adoption of the United Nations Climate Convention, parties agreed to introduce the loss and damage funding as an agenda item.
Crunch time for an agreement at the United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt. NASA projects sea levels will rise a foot by 2050. Plus,
we are now seeing that out-and-out denial is making an absolute comeback.
Climate disinformation is surging, deceiving the public about solutions.
All of that deception and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and, speaking of deception, snarky comment.
The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, will be immediately terminated.
If anyone could pretend to terminate a pretend non-existent climate policy, it would be Donald Trump. This is your Green News Report. I'm just sorry he didn't tell us that story about the windmills and not being able to watch TV at night or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, disgraced former President Donald Trump repeated his well-worn torrent of lies and disinformation about the accelerating climate crisis and the booming U.S. clean energy sector in announcing this week that he has launched a third run for the U.S. presidency in 2024.
And America didn't go wild.
Moving on, October 2022 ranked as the 4th hottest October ever recorded since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They project that 2022 will clock in as one of the top 10 warmest years on record, despite a strong La Niña in the Pacific Ocean, which typically exerts a cooling influence on the global climate.
But Donald Trump said it wasn't going to warm for 300 years.
Yeah, he's wrong.
They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years.
A new paper from NASA this week confirms previous studies projecting that sea levels will rise on average by at least a foot by 2050 along the U.S. Gulf and East coasts, thanks to man-made global warming. Again, that is a foot within 30 years, exposing billions of dollars worth of coastal infrastructure and development to higher storm surge and high tide nuisance flooding.
Gosh, I hope it doesn't hurt Mar-a-Lago.
In Egypt, it's crunch time in the final days of the UN Climate Summit, COP27, where the formal 2-year process is now underway to reach a global deal for rich countries who are primarily responsible for causing the climate crisis to compensate poorer nations for loss and damage from mounting climate impacts. In an interview with Democracy Now!, youth climate leader Vanessa Nakate of Uganda warned that poor nations are already reaching the limits of their capacity to adapt to repeated extreme weather disasters.
We need this money to be able to go to communities that need it, and for this money to go in form of small, accessible grants. The current and historic emitters, they need to take responsibility for the climate crisis, and they need to pay for this crisis.
Also, the U.S. backed a proposal for the COP27 closing statement to call for a phase down of all fossil fuels. And the G7, the group of 7 major economies, launched an insurance initiative to provide fast financial aid for nations hit by extreme weather disasters.
At the last COP, COP26, didn't they almost come out with a statement calling for the phase out of fossil fuels?
Yes, they did.
So this time they might actually do it?
Maybe.
We'll see.
A renewed blitz of climate disinformation coming largely from right-wing media is jeopardizing progress at COP27 by undermining public perception of climate risks and solutions and advocating delay. That's according to a new report by the Climate Action Against Disinformation Coalition. Their analysis found that Americans who watch Fox News are most likely to hold false beliefs about climate change and clean energy. They don't know about the global scientific consensus on man-made climate change, or that renewable energy is now cheaper and more reliable than fossil fuels.
Well, I hear it's not going to be a problem for another 300 years.
The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years.
A second report exposed that fossil fuel companies are spending millions to run hundreds of advertisements a day in English-speaking countries that mislead the public about viable climate solutions. But some good news. Nigeria has become the first country in Africa to enact regulations to cut methane emissions from its oil and gas sector. Here in the U.S., Washington State has mandated next-generation electric heat pumps in all new residential construction. And finally, France passed a law mandating that all large parking lots must be covered by solar panel canopies within 5 years, which is projected to generate electricity to power more than 8 million homes.
Very cool. That's something you have been calling for years.
Oh, yes.
For much more on all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. We'll see you after the Thanksgiving holidays. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Please help Progressive Voices support the Green News Report by stopping by bradblog.com/donate.
Mary had a little man.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind. Hey, y'all, you know, it feels like sometime around 2016, the right wing found out about transgenders existing and just lost their damn minds. You know, it's like marriage equality happened. They felt like they were losing people where the gays were concerned. Then all of a sudden, they found out about these brand new super gays out there and where they were pooping at. And it's just been all gas, no brakes ever since. Papaw's assemble got something new to scream at. At least that's how it played out in their minds. And it's only got more convoluted since then. Now it involves, you know, transgenders, drag shows, women's high school, sports somehow. Well, we know how much papaws have always cared about the integrity of women's sports, right? No, it's because, as always with this stuff, they got to frame it around the kids, got to protect the children, right? They call these people groomers. They say this stuff sexualizes children. Meanwhile, these are the same types of people that'll doll their baby girl up like John Bonet and then scream in her face for messing up the like a virgin part of the talent portion of the pageant. Give me a break. They talk about groomers, but they're still down with Matt Gaetz, and they ain't said nary a word about all the church diddling that goes on out there. Seems to me like maybe something else is up here. Now, it's just one of their favorites of all the recent boogeymen they've concocted out of thin air to yell at. The reality is these people don't actually have very much to be upset or worried about, so they got to make up to keep their fear erections raging. You can't even keep up with them all anymore, man. You can't. It's like you got Antifa, QAnon pizza, vampires, critical race theory, cancel culture, kitty litter kids, Mr. Potato Head's I mean, like, goddamn, can't y'all just believe in Bigfoot like a regular dumbass? At least Bigfoot don't hate the Jews. Lord, it's exhausting. But it's not just exhausting, it's also dangerous. You can't spend all that time and energy dehumanizing and vilifying a group of people and then be surprised when they become the targets of harassment, assault, and worse. This horrible tragedy in Colorado Springs, we still don't know yet exactly what was going on with that guy. I guess now he claims to be non-binary, which they're using to dunk all over the left, like that's the end of the story. Me, personally, I'm not going to put too much stock in that on account of he's a mass-murdering lunatic. I tend to take what those people say with a grain of salt. They usually have a manifesto and claim to be the Messiah. Do we take that at face value? No, because that would be stupid. Whatever ends up being the case with that guy, we know for sure, objectively, that he was a heavily armed madman, something we have far too much of in this country, in a demographic which is continually revved up and radicalized by them and their hateful-ass dog-whistling rhetoric. That's what I know. Love y'all.
It's true, man. Unless and until we actually police ourselves on the demonization of groups of people that we don't understand or don't want to understand or don't want to see or don't want to know. And so therefore they become demons. They become the evil seed. They become the ones that are, you know, Johnny Appleseeding our children. Unless and until we get real serious about this kind of leadership that demonizes entire swaths of people and then enforce the laws we already have on the books with regard to red flag laws, which 60% of this country will not enforce. Their sheriffs will not enforce the red flag laws that we managed to get passed after Uvalde. We managed to get some crap done and then go back to the good old days of the 90s. 1994, we had an assault weapons ban. We had one. It lasted 10 years. They let it sunset. Why? We would have a sunset clause in weapons of war being included in like your lunchbox and your cookies for school. I don't know why we let that sunset. I have no earthly idea why that was a good idea. But for the 10 years that we had the assault weapons ban, mass murder by assault weapons went down. Did it prevent all murder? No, nothing ever will. But the prevalence and the routineness and the traumatization and that it happens everywhere and anywhere all the time and that dead kids aren't enough to make people say, these weapons of war don't belong in 20-year-olds' hands. They don't belong in 30-year-olds' hands. They don't belong anywhere. They shouldn't be anywhere in America because America is not a battlefield. Hello? But that's not America. No, America, we prefer to be traumatized as long as we could tell ourselves that we are American. And that mass murder is as American as apple pie or pumpkin pie or some pie, cherry pie. It isn't. It's diluted. It's dangerous. It's ugly. It's a bloodbath here. We treat our land like it's a battlefield. And it's not. But it can happen everywhere and anywhere. And to allow semi-automatic weapons to be purchased is a sickness. It's sick. It's twisted. It's wrong. Sometimes things are just right and wrong. Sometimes they're nuanced and there's gray, but not in this case. Weapons of war do not belong on the streets of a country not at war. It's just that simple. And allowing people to have them, purchase them, own them, stockpile them, carry them is just a sickness. And that is why America is a nation that is traumatized. It is a nation that looks over its shoulder, even when they're sending their kids to school, even when they're going to church, even when they're going to the Super Target or the Walmart or the diner. Everybody is armed now to the teeth. And I thought that was supposed to make us safer. No, it didn't. It made us bloodier. It made us more warlike. It made us nastier. It made us bully more. It made us feel impenetrable. And the long arm of the law doesn't give a damn. And you know that because of two things and two things only. And these are the only two things you have to think about when we talk about this. Uvalde, they wouldn't go in the classroom. They wouldn't do it. They didn't want to come up against it. They didn't want to face a guy with a semi-automatic weapon. They didn't want to go in the classroom. They stayed outside for over an hour. Hundreds of them, 100 Department of Public Safety workers, 100 well-armed police officers refused to go in that classroom, refused, and let those kids make 911 calls. 911 calls saying, my teacher shot, but I think she's still alive. Bang, bang, bang. Oh, it's an active shooter. We're still not going in. Okay? I can't even believe that that is where we're at. And that is where we're at. And the other thing you need to know is that 60% of sheriffs will not enforce red flag laws. They just decided they don't like it. They're not enforcing it. And so mentally ill people can still go to the gun store, buy a gun, and use it the same day to kill people at a Walmart or at a university or at a nightclub. Well, Joe Biden has said that he's going to try to get an assault weapons ban in the lame duck session. He said, I'm going to do it whenever. I've got to make that assessment as soon as I get in and start counting the votes. Well, to count the votes, you have to know, A, who won in Georgia. I'm guessing it's going to be Raphael Warnock because Herschel Walker is indecipherable. I don't know what else to say. He is not leadership material. He's not the guy when you go out and you look at some of the most intelligent, skilled people in this country and say, yes, he's one of them. Let's consider him to be one of 100 senators that we have in the world. Only 100 people in the entire world, are U.S. senators. 100 people on this globe are U.S. senators, and Herschel Walker needs to be one. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. It would be funny if we weren't like at the precipice of it happening. But I'm guessing Warnock wins. Okay, so that gives us 51. Which does really nothing to pass gun legislation. What it does do, though, it would give, right now we have a 50-50 Senate. You know what that means for committees? It means the committees are evenly divided. So if there's 18 people on a committee, 9 Republicans, 9 Democrats. 51 changes that.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This election year has added a new season to our country's calendar, the silly season. Not silly as in fun, but as in asinine and pernicious. Forget any notion that America's elections should be about lofty ideals, important issues, and real ideas. Instead, right-wing screwballs have turned the GOP into the goofy old party, running campaigns based on frat boy stunts, horror movie scaremongering, and moronic games of hate your neighbor. For example, the GOP reached a new level of political degradation this year by literally gamifying its obsession with non-existent voter fraud. Party honchos have repeatedly been humiliated by failing to produce any proof of their wild claims that Democrats are running a massive illegal voting operation across America. So they've turned their snipe hunt into a national game, forming online posses of GOP voter fraud vigilantes who compete to find and out illegal voters. Post the name of an unqualified person supposedly scheming to cast a ballot, and you get 2 points. Name a group planning to bus illegal voters to the polls, bingo, you get 50 points. There are also bonus points if you report someone trying to vote by using the name of their pet or a dead person. Isn't this fun? But the funnest part of this sport is that you score simply by posting names. No need for any evidence that it's a real person, much less an illegal voter. What's the prize? If you get enough points, you get to be called a master. Wow, this isn't just silly, it's pathetic. This is Jim Hightower saying, far worse though, given the screwball fantasies of today's right-wing extremists, some of the GOP's vigilantes say they'll personally go door to door to get proof of fraudulent voting. What could possibly go wrong with that?
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1953. That was the day 400 photo engravers at 6 New York City newspapers walked off the job. Members of the AFL's International Photo Engravers Union had just voted down arbitration. All but one local newspaper, the New York Herald Tribune, were idled as 20,000 newspaper workers refused to cross the engravers' picket lines. 6 days into the strike, that newspaper suspended operations as well. Writers at the New Yorker magazine remarked they were, quote, curled up with the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Worker, and a 2-day-old copy of Le Prince. In the decades before digital images, photo engraving was a labor-intensive process. Highly skilled workers made metal plates from which newspaper images were printed. Photo engravers had been working without a contract since the end of October. They demanded a $15 a week raise. The Newspaper Association was only willing to grant $3.75. The other newspaper unions had been offered similar wage and benefit packages far below their demands. They knew that whatever they won or lost depended on the victory of the photo engravers strike. So they walked out in solidarity. Federal mediators intervened in an attempt to settle the strike. Hysteric newspaper editors across the country shrieked that the union had accomplished what the government would never dare do: subvert the freedom of the press. They sulked that the strike had broken 35 years of industrial harmony and peace, adding that the ungrateful workers didn't appreciate just how good they had it. After 11 days, members voted to end the walkout and let a fact-finding board solve the dispute. 3 months later, the board upheld the Newspaper Association's original offer of $3.75 a week plus benefits. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
So is
I watched it on TV.
All things Randy at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
As the investigation into the deadly shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs continues, more about the suspect, Anderson Aldrich, is uncovered. Everything from their encounter with law enforcement last year. A case that was dismissed for unknown reasons, to their own gender identity. In recently filed court documents, we've learned Aldrich is non-binary and uses they, them pronouns, raising more questions for those searching for a motive behind the attack. While others, some who were inside the club that night, say details about the shooter are the least of their worries.
I feel like I know everything I need to know about him and where he comes from and his perspective.
An even deeper dive into the suspected shooter's history and court documents show they changed their name from Nicholas Brink to Anderson Aldrich at 16. Born in Texas to Aaron Brink, an MMA fighter and porn actor with his own criminal past. While Colorado Springs police have said the suspect's mother, Laura Vopel, has not been cooperating with the investigation, CBS 4 has learned authorities in Riverside County, California, have 2 misdemeanor arrest warrants for Laura Vopel dating back to 2011.
You know, I think that if your parents both have police records and your father is a guy with a police record, an MMA fighter, and a porn star, you probably have a deficit going into your adolescence. I just think that probably if there were mental health services available in school, probably that kid would have come across some, social worker or a counselor who may have helped him. Sort through the fact that his mom is in prison, or his mom is a felon, and his father is a porn star with a criminal record. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just, and then when the police are called to your house because you want to blow up your own mother, I would say that should get you on some do not sell list for guns. But oh no, not in America. No. Not in America. In America, you can still buy a semi-automatic weapon. You can still do whatever the hell you want. And the right wing will excuse it by saying, well, you see, there are reports that he identified as non-binary. I couldn't care less about his sexual orientation. I care about the orientation of his gun in people's freaking faces. He turned into a mass murderer because of the way he was raised and by whom. And that there ought to be something that is known after the police have been called to your house because you want to blow up your mother. And get you on a list that says you can't buy a semi-automatic. In fact, you can't buy any weapons. Maybe you could buy weapons, but no ammunition. You know what I'm saying? It's so unbelievable. It is so strange, this country, how we treat these weapons of war and who can get them. Now, his father is really quite a piece of work. His father, I don't know if I have it, but his father was on the TV saying that, he had heard that his son had gone into a gay nightclub. And the thing that upset him about it wasn't that his son, went in there shooting and killing people. The thing that scared his dad was that his son might be gay. What the F is going on in that family? And the reason why the kid changed his name, and by the way, this whole idea that he's non-binary was introduced as a defense, I swear to God, by his public defender. So nobody knows if any of that is true, and it doesn't really matter because he's a mass murderer. That's what he is, who tried to kill his own mother. And his father isn't upset that his son is a mass murderer who tried to kill his own mother. Oh no, his father is upset because his son was in a gay nightclub and thought, oh, is he gay? Please tell me my son is not gay. I swear to God. And then started quoting like the Bible and stuff. Holy crap. The ex-MMA porn star dad, divorced, is quoting the Bible to thank God that his son is just a murderer and not gay. Wow. Where in the world is America right now? Where in the world are the parents, the community, the school? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And unless we get our arms wrapped around this, and unless we actually say that, we have a society that is traumatized, we have a society that is just, the flotsam and the jetsam are able to access, weapons of war. And that's not acceptable to us unless and until we say that this is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to look like. And we're going to be the only country where this is possible and where it looks like this. It's amazing to me. It's just, and Jenna Ellis, Jenna Ellis, that really great high dollar lawyer of Donald Trump's. You remember her, right? So she's like, hey, listen, I don't care what you say. Those people that were at that nightclub, they're burning in hell. And that's good. Why is she allowed to say this?
Even more tragic than untimely death is that the 5 people who were killed in the nightclub that night, there is no evidence at all that they were Christians. And so assuming that they were not, that they had not accepted the truth of the gospel of Christ and affirmed Jesus Christ as the Lord of their life, they are now reaping the consequences of having eternal damnation. And that is far, far greater. We should be having that conversation instead of just the tragedy of what happened to the body. We need to be talking about what happened to the soul and the fact that they are now in eternal separation from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And that conversation is what should happen. And that is what people should fear genuinely, not what anyone can do to the body, but ultimately what happens to us in eternity.
She needs to be disbarred and she needs to be shunned. She needs to be shamed and shunned and separated from normal people. I cannot believe that when you have a massacre like this, her commentary is that she knows that they did not accept Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior, and therefore it's okay that they're dead. And what's really sad is that they are burning in hell. That's what we should be talking about, that they are burning in hell, that they are separated from Jesus Christ. Now, you know, and I know, and every person who gives a crap about what she just said there knows. Jesus said zero, nothing at all about sexual orientation or homosexuality. Nothing. He was the outsider. But you have these people who have microphones, these people who have law degrees, these people who have platforms telling you, don't worry about the dead people who went out dancing. Dancing. They were dancing, everybody. Dancing. It's evil. It's bad. No. It's not a problem that they were slaughtered. It's not a problem that some 22-year-old wasn't picked up by law enforcement and was allowed to have a semi-automatic weapon and go in there and shoot them to death. That's fine. What you should be upset about is Jesus.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
This is Stephanie Miller, and here's what you missed. I think you summed it up best. You said, let's face it, anyone who supports Donald Trump doing anything is just a human being. Thank you.
Yeah. That's in response to, weird Elon letting him back on Twitter. It's like, and people are going, I support this. And like, no, don't support it for anything unless it's like for sitting in a prison cell and facing the walls for the rest of his life. That I support.
Yeah. So far, that's a big bag of rats, right? So Elon did some fake poll. It's like, the people have spoken. He's back on, and Trump's like, I'm not going back on. I have my Truth Social.
You can't legally.
Big bag of rats. So
this
for now,
this was after posting early on that before we let anybody on, we're gonna have to look at it. We're gonna have to they were gonna have a group get together and talk about it. No, he just let the bots decide.
Yeah, no, exactly. AOC said, I don't know, man. Last time he was here, this platform was used to incite an insurrection. Multiple people died. The vice president of the United States was nearly assassinated, and hundreds were injured. But I guess that's not enough for you to answer the question. Twitter poll it is. I mean,
Yeah.
And then Kanye's back on, and he just tweeted shalom with a smiley face. So that means
he did tweet
ignore
shalom.
The anti-Semitism.
Right. Yes, and apparently he's decorated his house for Hanukkah. So,
that's sweet. That's nice.
So speaking for the Jews, I'd just like to say,
do you speak for the Jews?
You know what? Whenever I feel like it, I feel, I'm kind of Jewy. So my mom was Jewish. I was raised Jewish. Yeah, I officially count.
That should be your tagline, the rude pundit. Kind of Jewy. Yeah, you said funny.
Where's my Hollywood money?
Exactly.
We asked George Soros directly for money when he came on this show, and he said no. Seems like you get credit for giving me a lot of money already. You might as well.
Right.
Hear all this and more on the next Stephanie Miller Show.
Nobody has ever done what we've done in the last 4 years.
Their entire economic plan, tax cuts for the rich and corporations.
And record-breaking unemployment.
The worst jobs report on record.
Trump is the only modern president to leave office with fewer jobs than when he took office.
The Trump administration formally asking the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act. This could leave up to 23 million Americans without coverage.
I hope that they end. It'll be so good if they end.
You also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no? There has to be some form of punishment. For the woman? Yeah, there has to be some form. And if I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons.
Whether you're listening to Leslie Marshall each Tuesday through Friday or Brad Bannon each Monday, you can hear them from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the Progressive Voices Network. Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
Tamara Lefkowitz is our guest international coordinator for the USW Healthcare Workers Council. Legislation, specifically the Workplace Violence Prevention for Healthcare and Social Service Workers Act, and what that would provide to, protect those healthcare workers, because nobody, especially healthcare workers who are, literally putting their lives on the line on a daily basis, should have to have their lives be put in jeopardy when they're simply going to the job.
This is an important bill because for far too long, healthcare workers have not really had a means to reconcile their violent workplaces. So if you go to work in a mine, and, there are certain standards and expectations that are going to exist in that mine. The same if you work in a paper mill or if you work in a steel mill. When it comes to the health and
Don't give up. Don't give up. What's true?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
So most of us enjoy living in a world where people have different opinions and different styles and different, views and different religions and different, skin tones. Most of us are, all about enjoying learning about other people and other cultures and other, but to preserve that, we have to actually win elections. And so free speech is growing this year ahead of the 2024 elections, right? Election deniers, greedy corporations, all of these, corporate news channels, they are polluting the dialogue. They are polluting ideology in this country. They are trying to make, you believe that white supremacy has a place at the table, right? Or that it's just something we have to live with, and that's just not true. And so if you want to gear up and help us grow so that we're in the best position possible for the 2024 election and give us a decent chance at actually solving our problems together, whether there's total agreement about this particular solution to that particular problem, or if it's a mix and match dialogue that we need to have in order to solve any of our problems, then please do support Free Speech TV, because that's what we're doing this year. We're going to grow it so that we can have what we need to have for the presidential in 2024. Okay. And if you want to help, pitch in, do it now. 877-378-8669. That is our phone number. Of course, online is, the easiest thing in the world. freespeech.org. You'll see the donate thing, click on it and go for it. And just know if you did, $50 today, it would become $100 because the frontline funders match everything that you donate, that everything that you chip in, they match it dollar for dollar up to $50,000. So freespeech.org or text us at 44321, the letters FSTV, and we'll send you a secure link. Listen, thank you very much for pitching in and helping us grow this thing, because we're going to have a big lift, a heavy lift in 2024, and we need to prevail. No doubt about it. All right, Catherine in Baltimore.
Hi, Randi. What a great show.
Oh, thank you.
Everything that you said about, yes, we are number one in the world for mass shootings. And if even I think, Somalia doesn't even have that many in a day. But I did want to correct you on Thanksgiving is not uniquely American. It's Canada celebrates Thanksgiving. In fact, they've been celebrating it longer than we have. They've been celebrating it since the 1500s. I think it's the second Monday in October or something. But everything that you've said about the guns, I mean, there is really something so fundamentally wrong with Americans if we can't get 60 people in the Senate to ban assault weapons.
I agree with you. I honestly do not understand why it's even a thing. Why is this a problem that they can't solve when clearly when we had the assault weapons ban, we saw the number of mass shootings go down a lot.
Exactly. Yes. And everyone, I can't imagine anybody that doesn't have a friend or somebody that they know that had somebody involved, a family member or a friend involved in mass shooting. It touches all of us.
Yeah,
and it touches Republicans. So why they are just, it seems to say that they just want the donations from the NRA I just can't get it.
Okay, I will tell it to you. I will tell you exactly what goes on. Okay, it's not just the money, which is a big, big, big part of it. Okay, the NRA money and the Gun Owners of America is a new, moneyed organization that also donates. Okay, but it's not just about that. It's about their wackadoodle base. Okay. They know that in a general election, most people are going to vote like you and me are talking. Okay, they're going to vote for, to protect their children in school. They're going to vote to be safe in church. Right. They're going to vote to have, Walmart be a gun-free zone. That's what happens in the general election. But they can't win a primary when the crazies show up. They can't get through a primary being for an assault weapons ban. They can't get through a primary telling their sheriff that they have to enforce red flag laws. And so they cater to the craziest, most insane crowd because they have to win a primary in order to make it into the general. And that's what's going on. That's why they won't denounce Trump. That's why when Trump hosted these white supremacists who aren't white and certainly aren't supreme, they stayed silent. They don't stay silent because they're okay with it. They stay silent because they're afraid of Trump's base. They're afraid of the primary voters. And that's the system we have. And that's why it is this way.
Jeez.
Now,
if they
were a quarter as good a leader as they claim to be, if they had any leadership qualities or abilities or salesmanship or whatever you want to call it, they could talk to these people and explain to them or sell them the idea that assault weapons don't belong in American culture. They could wage a culture war against the piece of metal, but they choose not to because this is the path of least resistance. So it's
these young people,
it's purely laziness. It's purely laziness, truly.
And these young people have grown up in this whole gun culture. I mean, hearing it from them about how, oh, yeah, we're going to have a gun and we're going to, blah, blah, blah. And, they've grown up thinking this is some kind of macho thing. And, of course, that's the first thing they do when they have these mass shootings. They go out and they buy an AR-15 or whatever these assault weapons are called because they've just grown up with that's what you need. When you can own a gun, you need one of these.
Well, I disagree with you. I think Gen Z, which is who is doing this, I think for the most part, Gen Z, I would say 90% of Gen Z has grown up I don't think they've ever gone to a school in their entire lives where they didn't have to go through, a live fire drill. And I think and I think they're done with it. I think they're sick of it. I think that they want change and they will get it. The problem is
point.
Right, that you have the odd duck. You have the don't fit in, the incel, or the guy who was raised by an MMA fighter and an ex-porn star with a felony record, and his mother, has also had encounters with.
His name was? His name was Dick Delaware. His porn star name.
Oh,
I'm not kidding you.
Yeah.
He had to pick one of the smallest states, of course.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
Oh, well.
Okay, TMI.
That's funny.
Dirk Diggler. I mean, I really thought she was going to say that. Dirk Diggler was his porn name. But literally, those are the minority of Gen Z kids. It's just that with this kind of firepower, they could do so much damage in the blink of an eye. And that's why we need to have them intercepted at school, tagged and flagged as being not worthy of having a gun license. Oh, yes, I said the L word, license. And safety training. Right.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Vice President Mike Pence calls his wife Karen mother, and sometimes mother. Mother does not allow father to attend events with alcohol without her being present. Mother does not allow father to have dinner with another woman. In fact, mother does not allow father to be alone in a room with another woman. Mother is an art teacher at Emmanuel Christian School, which requires employees to affirm in writing that they will not engage in homosexual sexual acts or have a transgender identity. Father's epic homophobia made him sign into law in Indiana the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which encouraged and condoned the aggressive discrimination of gays and lesbians. Around the White House, mother is known as the bulldog and father as the pleaser. Father was placed in charge of the coronavirus response on February 26th. The 5 months that followed, more than 170,000 Americans have died. Mother and father both oppose gay marriage. In interviews, father obsessively praises Trump's broad shoulders, and cameras have repeatedly caught him looking at Trump like Cinderella. Some senators call Pence Trump's fourth wife. An official from the Reagan administration said, "I'd like my wife to look at me just for one day the way Mike Pence looks at President Trump every day they're together." Father wrote about how disgusted he was with the Republican Party because they allowed HIV-positive people to speak at the 1996 convention. Father supported the use of federal funding to treat people, quote, seeking to change their sexual behavior, unquote, otherwise known as gay conversion therapy. Father praises himself as an uber Christian, but was caught stealing campaign donations for his first congressional race and used the money to pay his mortgage, credit card bills, and even fees for golf tournaments. Meet Mike and Karen, father and mother. They're just weird AF.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
It is midnight in Washington. The lights are finally going out in the Capitol after a long day in the impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump. You can't trust this president to do the right thing, not for 1 minute, not for one election, not for the sake of our country. You just can't.
Bing, bing, bong, bong. Bing,
he will not change, and you know it. History will not be kind to Donald Trump. I think we all know that. Not because it will be written by never-Trumpers, but because whenever we have departed from the values of our nation, we have come to regret it, and that regret is written all over the pages of our history. If you find that the House has proved its case and still vote to acquit, your name will be tied to his with a cord of steel and for all of history. He has betrayed our national security. He has compromised our elections, and he will do so again. You will not change him. You cannot constrain him. Truth matters little to him. What's right matters even less, and decency matters not at all. We have proven Donald Trump guilty. Now do impartial justice and convict him.
excited to see members of Congress incite violence against law enforcement, enjoy armed insurrections, and the big lie? If so, thank a MAGA Republican. If you think election results should only count when Republicans win, thank a MAGA Republican today. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hi, I'm Laura Flanders of The Laura Flanders Show, where I interview the best thinkers and doers of our time. On TV, the show premieres Sundays at 11:30 Eastern on PBS World and at the Laura Flanders Show YouTube channel. You can join my guests and me every week there in the live viewing party, and then catch us all week on public television stations. Prefer to listen? Find us on a radio station near you or subscribe to the free podcast. You'll find listings and ways to subscribe at lauraflanders.org. That's also where you'll receive my regular commentaries. I call them the F word. Here's this week's. Win, lose, or draw. The allure of the white working class voter never dulls for Big D Democrats. Whatever happens in election season, the party's conclusion is always the same. The white, read male, working class voter holds the key to the future. Not the
Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
It feels more frightening, particularly in this atmosphere of hate, which is only kind of increasing in this country. Political polarization, hate against different groups. That certainly ups the ante. And I've got to say, reporting on this stuff, it's frustrating. It's dispiriting. We've been here, all week. And since we've been here, we've seen another shooting in Virginia. We've seen another shooting in Maryland. I mean, it is never ending. And then, after the big events, after 19 kids are slaughtered in Uvalde, Texas.
Oh, God.
There's thoughts and prayers, and there's going to be changes in gun laws, and I'm afraid I'm very cynical about that. I mean, because they don't really change. After Uvalde, 19 kids murdered in cold blood, there was a push by the Democrats to have more gun control, and some Republicans, and what they ended up doing was not anything big. They didn't ban these assault weapons that are all over the place. What they did was, little incremental things, like they closed what they called the boyfriend loophole. So, that means that it's not just people who've been convicted of domestic violence against a partner they live with or a partner they share a kid with. If you're just a boyfriend, you can also have your guns taken away. I mean, it's incremental. It's small. And the other thing that we deal with, Max, is should we be reporting on this? A lot of people tell us on Twitter, you're just glorifying these killers and you're spawning more copycats. But we have to cover this. This is news. I mean, are we not going to cover when 19 kids are killed in Texas? Are we not going to cover when 49 concert goers are gunned down in Vegas?
Yeah.
We have to cover it. It's news. It's what's happening in this country. But sadly, it doesn't seem to make any difference by covering it. It's just a loop.
Endless. An endless loop, a Mobius strip. It's like the old cassette players. It's like, the old cart machines. I mean, it's just endless, endless, endless loop, 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 loop. Shooting, grief, bury the bodies, find out who did it, thoughts and prayers, do it again. Endless, endless. And the solutions are there. I mean, obviously they're there. In the Wild West, you had towns where you weren't allowed to bring a gun, okay? You had so many places where you wanted to come into town, you had to check your gun with the sheriff. And everybody thinks that it's always been like this. No, it hasn't always been like this. This is madness. This is insanity. This is corporate interests. This is lobbyists. This is money. This is, lying to the people that will vote for you, telling them that they have some Second Amendment right to carry weapons of war. I mean, nobody. You look at like the Heller decision from the Supreme Court. I mean, it overturned years and years and years of gun laws that served us as decent human beings who wanted to go to the soda fountain with our children and let them read comic books while we sipped on lime Rickies. And then all of a sudden, the Supreme Court changes hands to some of the most phenomenally right-wing freaks of nature who say, oh no, you have the right to carry anything at all. But I will tell you, even Scalia didn't go that far. Even Antonin did not say that, you have the right to carry a weapon of war. He said, in your home, you have the right to a handgun. And they ran with that and started lying about what that actually said and what it actually provides for and what actually the right is. And people think that they have the right to own bazookas now. They think that they have the right to own a tank. They have the right to own HIMARS, weapons systems. They have the right. I mean, pretty soon, it's not going to be $9,000 for me to repair an air conditioner, a 4-ton Carrier air conditioner in Florida where it's still 90 degrees and I got to turn the oven on all day for 2 days for Thanksgiving. No, it's going to be, I'm going to need to, get out the credit card, whip out the payment plan to put an iron dome over my house to keep missiles from coming. Incoming! I mean, really, how much are you going to let this escalate? How much are you going to let this escalate? And the kind of rhetoric that we have in this country, the kind of hatred that we see in this country, the deluded masses, the bigots, the fake patriots, the sheep that have gone astray are the ones that are getting these weapons. And you only need a few of them. You only need a handful of them to do real damage. I mean, look at what happened on January 6th. They didn't even have the weapons, right? They had numbers and the police, were outnumbered. You're going to need some sort of a missile system over your abode. Keep letting this go. Hugh in Pennsylvania.
Hey, Randy. First time, long time since day one of Arab America. I got into guns. I was a single guy in late 80s, early 90s, so I have some information that can help us move forward. So give me like a minute or two to say where we came from and how we can move forward. So in 1932, fully automatic machine guns were banned, the sale and manufacture.
Tommy guns.
Yeah, Tommy guns. You can buy them still through somebody with a federal firearms license. Because they were banned, they became scarce. So you would pay like a $250 tax, get fingerprinted, and I think background checked. It takes like 6 months, and you would pay tens of thousands of dollars for this thing. So that's one thing. When I hear about the assault weapons, I'm like, okay, we've already banned things before effectively. Now there are 15 million ARs out there, so this is not a silver bullet. So the second thing I'll say is in the mid 80s to late 80s, we were getting flooded with cheap knockoff AKs that were semi-automatic with the banana clips. That was a ban before the 90s ban. So what they did was they said you could only sell them with a 5-round clip that can't be removed. So you have that. And then we had the assault weapons ban. And here's the crazy thing. Like, I was into it at the time. There was, I think one year there was only 700 deaths from quote-unquote long guns. So they included assault weapons with shotguns and rifles. So it wasn't even a thing, but it was a good thing it was banned. And so this is sort of like a virus that developed in the later 90s after Columbine and stuff. So it wasn't a thing that people were getting shot with assault weapons until they unrestricted things. The other thing I'll tell you is that I got a friend that I used to work with. He got into AK or AR-15s, and he wanted, for some reason, a suppressor to not bother his neighbors. He was very responsible, and a short barrel. So each of those things required the background checks, fingerprints, tax, 6 months to get. So where I'm going with this is they have to restrict the manufacture in America. The assault weapons we were getting in the past were coming from overseas. So you have that issue with Congress and lobbyists. It's going to screw over American companies. The other thing is that we have it in place where, as I said, if you want to add these restricted things to your AR-15, that's already in place. Raise the taxes, raise the age. Kyle Rittenhouse, this bugs the crap out of me to no end, didn't carry that weapon across state lines. He had it there. Right. He was 17. It was totally illegal for him to have it. It was totally illegal for him to carry it. Nothing happened to him. It was a straw purchase, same as if some felon, that did a straw purchase and committed murders. Everybody would be up in arms, but, he's like lauded. Let's see, did I forget anything?
Because it's a culture of death. I mean, it really is. They worship death. They literally do.
Like when people say ban assault weapons, that doesn't get it. Like we need details. We need a plan. We need things to suggest and implement over time. It's not. You can start with the manufacturer and sale and say for fully automated machine guns that you have to go through an FFL, which I don't think is the case now with ARs. I'm not sure. I'm kind of talking off the cuff, but
right.
Anyway, I hope some of this stuff helps people see that this is not an easy thing. 15 million of these things out there. Ban them now, and at least the scarcity will raise the price, take some people out of it.
Yes.
And restrict the age.
Yes, and the tax. I like it.
Yeah, and tax them. Tax the shit out of them.
Oh,
sorry.
That's okay. I dumped him. He said tax the crap out of them, but he didn't say crap. But yes, these are good points. These are serious proposals by serious people who seriously want to help us solve a serious problem of violence.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes. RandiRhodes.com.
Top of the hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
For the first time ever since the adoption of the United Nations Climate Convention, parties agreed to introduce the loss and damage funding as an agenda item.
Crunch time for an agreement at the United Nations Climate Summit in Egypt. NASA projects sea levels will rise a foot by 2050. Plus,
we are now seeing that out-and-out denial is making an absolute comeback.
Climate disinformation is surging, deceiving the public about solutions.
All of that deception and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and, speaking of deception, snarky comment.
The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, will be immediately terminated.
If anyone could pretend to terminate a pretend non-existent climate policy, it would be Donald Trump. This is your Green News Report. I'm just sorry he didn't tell us that story about the windmills and not being able to watch TV at night or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, disgraced former President Donald Trump repeated his well-worn torrent of lies and disinformation about the accelerating climate crisis and the booming U.S. clean energy sector in announcing this week that he has launched a third run for the U.S. presidency in 2024.
And America didn't go wild.
Moving on, October 2022 ranked as the fourth hottest October ever recorded since record-keeping began in the mid-1800s, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They project that 2022 will clock in as one of the top 10 warmest years on record, despite a strong La Niña in the Pacific Ocean, which typically exerts a cooling influence on the global climate.
But Donald Trump said it wasn't going to warm for 300 years.
Yeah, he's wrong.
They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years.
A new paper from NASA this week confirms previous studies projecting that sea levels will rise on average by at least a foot by 2050 along the U.S. Gulf and East coasts, thanks to man-made global warming. Again, that is a foot within 30 years, exposing billions of dollars